Ah yes, the Feywild. What wonders shall we discover as we adventure among the verdant branches of the
I'm the hag. What did you say? Let me eat your eyes.
This is not what I thought the Feywild would be, honestly.
Your eyes, Kelly Clarkson.
Morning everyone, I'm Willowares, and today we're going to be talking about the most magical of creature classes, D&D Fey Bosses. Hags, Archfey, these guys are incredibly powerful, but I would argue missing a special something. So, two things. First problem isn't a problem necessarily, more of a perception. A common thing I see amongst new players going into the Fey realm, or any adventure dealing with the Fey, is that there's a certain expectation they'll be hanging out with the Winx Club for their precious Friday nights. And while hey, we can absolutely make that happen in D&D, anyone who's spent any time in the Feywild will tell you that's just not true. And we'll get into that later in a bit. Second thing will become a bit more apparent when we dig into the various baddies of the Feywild itself. So quickly, let's fly over the Feywild and see what we can gather for our boss. And hey, if you're a player, don't worry, I've got something for you too. Let's just get into it. When thinking of Fey creatures, think of nature-focused, charming, tricky, and unpredictable. And what a better tricky creature to start with than the hag. Hags can have their own video essay. Hags can have their own branch of the library, their own zip code. Even the infamous Baba Yaga in D&D is kind of hinted at as being a hag herself, though different sources vary on that point. They are so much fun to run, to play against, everything. There's lots of different hags, so I'll just focus on the recent revamp of the powerful Archhag. When these ladies are within 30 feet of each other, they are excellent spellcasters, and even when you separate one by its stealth, they still have a ton of really tricky Fey-themed utility baked into their kit. For example, if you drop a hag to 0 hit points and she's not within 30 feet of her anathema, a specific object that represents the opposite of her power, she actually just drops to 1 HP and bamfs somewhere safe, cursing everyone nearby. She's got counterspell, she's got plane shift, she's a cursing machine, majored in trickery with a focus in emotional manipulation. Fantastic boss. A. Next up, we have the Prince of Frost. So you won't find this guy in the new monster manual as far as the stat block goes, but I think it's important to talk about him because there's a lot more powerful Fey in the Feywild, the Archfey, and they're usually named characters. Archfey are similar to hags in that they also have an Achilles heel, this time called their nemesis, though it doesn't always have to be a person necessarily. Mechanically, I can't speak for the Prince of Frost officially, but he's been homebrewed a bunch, and obviously his kit usually focuses on frost damage. His story is a classic fairy tale as well. Guy gets girl teleports to the material plane and falls in love with the mortal. Guy gets super upset about it, I guess, and becomes the Prince of Frost. He also doesn't wear pants. He's a B- boss for lack of pants. Next, we have goblins, bugbears, and hobgoblins. Though quite different stat-wise, they all sort of share the burden of being the classic D&D grunts that range from the low number of CR rating all the way up to about 6-ish, with a heavy focus on martial combat and some spellcasting light. And each have been, at various times, reclassified from being just regular humanoids to Fey creatures. They all to me have a pretty weak big boss rating, say like a D, but that's because they're the bread and butter of the lower level fights and campaigns, and honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way. I think we all remember some of our first fights being with these guys, so D, but thanks. Thanks for the memories. I also want to point out how refreshing it is to fight more melee-based creatures in the Feywild sometimes when you're overwhelmed with all the other Fey doing all of those magical, glittery somersaults around you. Dryads are medium-sized Fey that, while incredibly unintimidating stat-wise, definitely embody the nature side of the Feywild. Not a lot to say about them from a boss perspective. I think they would need a lot of work, but they definitely have nice little flavor bits, like occasionally living in a shambling mound. D boss, but only because the Dryads would keep me up at night, staring into the woods, trying to think of a long-term story that wasn't just a copy of Fern Gully. Eladrin are the elves of the Feywild. Charming, spellcastery, teleporty. These guys are pretty neat. A nice little flavor bit I love is that when they use their Fey step, they actually step for a moment into the Feywild itself. It's kind of like Misty Step, but just cooler. Their appearance and kit is defined by whatever season they vibe the most with. Some of them also move up into the Archfey tier, so these guys definitely have potential. So I'd say about a C boss for them. Send Centaurs,
Hey there, centaurs.
are another slightly martial-focused fae that are half horse, half man, and all suspicious of any visitors into their forest. Centaurs
Hey there, centaur.
are pretty cool for their kit because they've got the increased movement speed, but also a little bit of range, be it in their weapons, which are usually bows or spears or pikes, or some ranged, druidic flavored spell stuff. Very well-rounded, low to mid-level fights, probably a C- Big Boss. And once again, that martial factor is kinda nice to see. Next up, we have the Verdant Prince, which yeah, it's another situation where I'm like, dang, these guys, if we just wanted to make them big bads, they'd just be archfays. But hey, regardless, they're still pretty cool. While the Prince of Frost lacks pants, the Verdant Prince usually lacks shirts. They delight in making deals with unfortunate fools they come across, occasionally striking up oath bonds, which, according to the Forgotten Realms wiki, states, if one party broke the bargain, then the wronged one was instantly aware of the Oathbreaker's distance and direction, and the Oathbreaker would be sickened. Only a wish or a miracle spell could break an oath bond, as well as death, and the wrong party would be aware that the oath had ended, but not how. I think these guys have a bit better boss potential than a centaur,
Hey there.
so let's give them a shirt and a B rating. Finally, we have the Redcaps. The most vicious little guys, the hats dipped in blood, little sickles sharp as needles. They kind of remind me of those really badly done real-life gnome sighting, found footage stuff. D boss, but there's always a tiny part of me that's kind of afraid he could pop up behind me at any moment. Like, really? So as you can see, we have a pretty big trend here of higher level Fey monsters kind of reserved for the Hags and the Archfey. Now of course, I didn't get to everybody and there's always going to be outliers, but it sort of begs the question, how can we beef up Fey creatures to a high level without having the knee-jerk reaction of, man, this should have been an Archfey, or darn, I wish I was fighting a Hag? And I think the answer actually lies in the creatures like the Hobgoblin, the Centaur, creatures that have physical prowess. We have the magical big bads solidified in the Feywild, but what about the melee? I also want to introduce a boss that can telegraph to a newer player that, hey, I know you think the Feywild is all about friendship and magic, but you definitely came to the wrong plane, my guy, while still having that Feywild flavor. And yes, that does mean we need to have magic in our big bad's kit, but also maybe this is an opportunity to introduce Feywildness in a bloody package that more people will want to open. And to do that, well, I think you know the drill by now. We're going to the movies, baby. Let's go to the movies. Got a ticket for you. The Green Knight movie is a fantastic visual journey based on the classic Arthurian tale. Looking back at some Arthurian or even just chivalric traditions, we as a modern society almost see it as strange as the rules of the Feywild. It's a complicated film, but to put it briefly, a mysterious knight, the Green Knight, offers up a game to the royal court. One may strike a blow to him, winning his axe in the process, but in a year, he is allowed to return the blow in kind.
She was a fairy.
The main character takes up this challenge and cuts off the knight's head, and later journeys across a dreamlike, arguably very Fey-like landscape to meet his fate. Here we find some major themes of chivalry: honesty, holding up your end of the bargain even if it might kill you, and just overall honor. And yes, this movie and story have so many different interpretations, so I really recommend watching it yourself and coming up with your own conclusions. But back to the classic theme of honor, it's all delivered in an extremely surreal way. Are there more direct ways to test a knight's metal and follow-throughness than having him cut off your head and then travel to your super cute Airbnb in the wilderness a year later? Absolutely. But wrapping up these otherwise quite regular heroic themes in a strange roundabout way is exactly the kind of flavor the Feywild has when it's at its best. Also, tiny side note just to highlight how wild chivalry themes and tropes can be, the head chopping game I talked about, where the beheaded guy is gonna try to kill you a year later, that was not seen as unusual during that time. I'm super serious. It's called the beheading game. Apparently Ireland was the first recorded instance of it, so thanks Ireland. Hollow Knight is okay. So I know what you're thinking. Willowares, you should have kept Hollow Knight for the undead, or at least the beast video. You're thinking, hey Willowares, you're dumb. You probably don't know how to read. And you know what? Maybe you're right. So hey, like and subscribe to see if I ever learn how to read. Hollow Knight is a video game about a little guy that dashes and slashes his way through a mysterious, crumbling civilization, mostly made up of insect-like creatures. I look at the kingdom of Hallownest and I see the Feywild. The enemies, the setting, the lore all have that dark fairy tale vibe. The The Pale King and the White Lady could absolutely be members of a Fey court. But most importantly, Hollow Knight is brutal. Spoilers here, but there's dead things, there's seas of dead things, there's jars of trying to live things. You are constantly dying, and the residents of Hallownest are at the whim of terrifying forces that seek to control them, infect them, even give them public transport. But combat isn't all about spells, it's movement, it's physical attacks, slashing. It's a story, much like the Green Knight, that touches upon duty, mortality, and choice, only this time it's about making a choice that affects a bunch of very cute little guys. And that's what will bring in all the players who are a little iffy about adventuring in the Fey blender of the Feywild. You just have to remind them that it's absolutely a blender, like as in a $700 Ascent X5 Vitamix blender with a 10-year warranty type of blender. And a boss that is from the get-go absolutely vicious. The Feywild isn't just a fairy tale place, it's the fairy tale place. Fairy tales, legends, fables, these were our adventures long before we actually sat down at the table to be adventurers ourselves. We've been using fairy tales as a parable, a cautionary tale, and a mirror to mankind itself for forever. And it's fitting to me that the Feywild in D&D is also a mirror of the material plane. And also the Shadowfell, I guess, but it kind of makes my metaphor a little less punchy. So let's just ignore the Shadowfell. Let's just ignore the Shadowfell for now. And you can support that by wrapping up the quest in a classic life lesson that has been Trojan horsed into a sparkly, confusing centaur.
Hey there.
I think we can actually knock out the problems I talked about earlier easily with a single boss type. So let's improve the curb appeal, so to speak, of the Fey for those who might enjoy a bit more sword side of the sword and sorcery right from the get-go. In short, for our new recipe, we want that strange Fey rulebook, a bit more ham-fisted brutality, but still maintaining that touch of wild magic. So let's see what we can cook. At the edges of autumn, dancing between the line of cold winter and plentiful harvest, lie whispers of a powerful being who has never feared death. In fact, he chases it. It is said, long ago, during a time of great turmoil in the land, a brave knight was called upon by the courts to cull the weakest members, called the rite of pruning. Though he didn't wish for it, he took up this mantle, donning a helm and armor made of twisting bronze vines. The vines were enchanted to grant him relief from the pain of destroying those he knew, quieting his mind the moment he struck a killing blow. He methodically completed his task, each death driving him closer to madness, each time the vines digging deeper and deeper into his body to ease his anguish, the only thing anchoring him being his sense of duty to those above him. Yet when the ritual was done, his bloodlust was not, and the knight kept walking, leaving a trail of bloodied leaves in his wake. Every so often, the Culling King will call for an offering. Different towns, cities, and enclaves that lie along his realm as the ever-changing seasons fluctuate over the land would suddenly, inexplicably be in the shadow of his towering palace, the dying remnants of a towering tree that seemed to scrape starlight itself. And when he leaves, just as quickly as he appeared, the only hint of his passing is a circle of gnarled stumps, cut down by his great axe. Those left behind leave flowers and trinkets at their base, as if maybe mourning the loss of a loved one, but they cannot quite remember why. And the Culling King moves on, for every harvest must be cut, no matter how lush or beautiful it is. He waits upon his throne, perhaps for someone to free him of this burden through death, or even worse, someone to take up his heavy, heavy crown of duty. The Culling King can sense those full of life, excess, and comfort, and takes his swing. He is the natural balance of abundance, a being that occasionally tips the overflowing Feywild back towards center. He is a brutal melee machine, cutting down good or evil alike. A refreshing palate cleanser of a boss in the more spell-focused Feywild. His tactics are built around brutality and bleeds. In the midst of all this trickery, he is a being of dreadful predictability, void of laughter or emotion. Still, it is rumored he cannot and will not turn down a duel, perhaps a holdover from his days in court. If one can withstand his assault, perhaps they will gain a weapon of great power. But fall, and the very memory of your existence, may be buried in the Feywild itself. And yet, some say, within those strange stumps left behind, flickerings of light will start to glow. Small spirits, perhaps those felled by the night who do not wish to move on, or perhaps new growth that otherwise could never have flourished on the dense Feywild forest floors. And yet others claim they are the kind memories of the Culling King, destined to be restless as long as he is. Kind, curious creatures that will follow those who have a sense of honor, who will help and protect as any good familiar can. Well, hey, we did it! Yay, we did it! Here's the shiny art and stat block of our culling king. And for the players, I have his very own axe, sharpened on the souls, I mean trees. It's sharpened on the trees of the Feywild itself. And you can find it in the usual spot below. And hey, we also got some freshly baked Harvestkin familiars for your enjoyment. Noble companions that will hopefully help you on your journey into the Feywild. You can find those on my Patreon. Hooray! It's down there. Thanks to everybody who has subscribed, liked, and shared. I pretty much have shot my eyesight from reading all the comments. But it is probably my favorite part of my day, so hey, keep them coming. Let me know what your favorite fairy tale is in the comments below. And hey, if you enjoy these bosses, I got a bunch more here and here. So thanks again, everybody. Have a great day, and I'll see you in 2 weeks. Goodbye!